Alright, we're going to start off with if statements. If statements are a lot of fun. We're going to be able to control things. So public class if example, and since this is a class, it should have a capital I. There we go. And public static void main. Oops. And let's make sure that we have all the matching parentheses or curly braces that we need, and all the matching parentheses as well. Okay, we're good. Alright, so we already covered booleans. Let's see how they're useful. So our boolean, we'll call bool1 equals true. So we're going to say if bool1, then system out print line do something. So I should save this. I'm going to save it in the same place I always save them. And we can run it, and it says do something. Now what exactly does an if statement do? If statements can be confusing, but no matter how complicated it is inside these parentheses, in the end it always evaluates to a true or a false. So what this is saying is, if true, then do what's inside these curly braces. Alright, that sounds good enough. Well, is it true? It is in this case. And so if I change this to a false, then I can run it again. It compiles and nothing happened. Actually, something did happen, but it just didn't print this out. So let's go ahead and system out print line end, just so we know that it does actually do something. All right, it got to end. Life is good, but it never ran do something because only if this expression inside is true. Well, what is the value of bool1? Well, it's false. So obviously that's not something we really care about. We are not going to run do something. If we turn this back to true, then it will write do something. Do something. Great. Let's go through another example here. I'm going to comment this out. And let's have something that's a little bit more interesting. We'll have an integer called num1 equals 5. There's a lot of expressions that we care about in programming. So, for example, if num1 is less than 5, then we want to write something out. System out print line less than 5. Well, it's not going to print out because it's not less than 5. So let's go ahead and change this to 4. Is num1 less than 4? Well, actually, I should make it something bigger. There we go. If num1 is less than 6, it'll say less than 5, which doesn't really make any sense. So there should be 6. Compile that. Everything's good. We'll run it. And so it's going through, and it says if, now this whole thing is going to end up being an expression. Num1. What is a num1? It's going to replace that num1 to a 5. And then it says, is 5 less than 6? Last time I checked, that is true. So it'll change that to a true. And now, if true, well, yes, if it's true, it'll run this, and then it says less than 6, which shows up right here. The important thing to understand with expressions and if statements is they always end up to be true or false. There's a whole bunch of expressions we can do. Like for example, we can do greater than. And so we'll compile that. That works fine. All we did was get end. Because is 5 greater than 6? Let's go through this again. If comes through, num1 gets the current value, which is 5. 5 is greater than 6. Is 5 greater than 6? No, that's false. So if true, well, that's not true, so it skips it. Okay, good enough. So the expressions we've seen so far, the expressions would be less than and greater than. But what about comparing? So if num1, most people say equals 5, and that makes a whole lot of sense, but we already have the equal being used for something. See it right here? And num1 equals 5. So when we have a single equal sign, that means assignment. So single equal sign, so single equal, there we go, single equal is assignment. When we have comparison, we do equal equal. So that's our next one there, equal equal. So if num1 is equal to 5, then we're going to say less than 6. I'll rewrite this so that it says something meaningful like cheese. That's very meaningful. Hopefully somebody's laughing out there. All right, so let's go through this again. If num1, what's the current value of num1? It's 5. And then this is an expression, 5 equals 5. Is that true or false? Oh, 5 does in fact equal 5, so if true, aha! If true, then you run it, and there's our cheese. Nice. All right, well, let's change the value of num1. Let's make it to a 7, and then we'll run that, and then we don't get cheese. Bummer. There's a couple more. There's greater or equal, and there's less than or equal. Let's go ahead and look at this. So if num1 is less than or equal to 5, well, is 7 less than or equal to 5? No, it's not, so it did not run. But if we change it to greater or equal to, is 7 greater or equal to 5? Yes, it is. So now we get our cheese. It's just so cheesy. There we go. So that's the basics of an if statement. If statements are very useful for deciding things. So this is called a control statement. And an if statement, which is a control statement, controls the program. You could use this for example, telling the thermostat. So controlling the, I don't even know how to spell thermostat. Thermostat. There we go. So let's what temperature do we want? Let's say we want it to be 75. If the temperature is greater or equal to 75, then we want the thermostat to come on. So how would you change this? Go ahead and pause the video and think about it. All right, so if this number is greater or equal to 75, okay, so num1 is greater than or equal to 75. Then we are going to turn on the AC. Turn on AC. So what is that going to do for us? What that's going to do is if the temperature ever gets above 75 or equal to or greater than 75, we're going to turn this on. And that's the basics of if statements. I'm going to have some practices listed, so go ahead and do those practices as well.